ready to go, ready to flow. But what does even flow mean? It means not having to get in my own way. I think that's exactly where, you know what? No more absolution. It's not exactly anything, and it's not definitely anything. And when I think of that stuff, it just helps because as a designer, I'm a planner. But I'm also the type of person, and if you're anything like this, it's so contradicting sometimes because it's like I hate this order, structure, having to follow guidelines and strict this and that. But then it's also like I need something structured, I need routine in my life. And I think realizing that routine happens, it's already there. So if you're finding this video today, it's a good idea to go outside. Whether that's having a trip or in a way just going out and literally touching grass, sitting down. This is one of those things that I did when I was having one of my first ever panic attacks. Is I called my cousin, I pulled over and I sat down in a random apartment complex and just sat on the lawn, and I was just like putting my fingers in the grass. When I think of the beach, my favorite thing and everything, or the biggest thing I look forward to, is just feeling the warm sand and being able to bury myself in it. When I think of those things, that's what we need sometimes, is to feel. Because sometimes you're gonna have little mosquitoes biting you and you're not even gonna realize, and it's just gonna be either infecting you or sucking your blood. And by that, sometimes it's your own anxiety can be a mosquito. Sometimes it's like big mouth. But no, it's thinking of the fact that when I go out into nature, there's such an emphasis on the slow down. A post I saw from Jadina today that it was inspiring this conversation of nature was maybe why we feel so free in nature is because everything just is exactly as it should be. There's no expectation for the tree behind me to do anything other than be a tree. There's no expectation for, as annoying as mosquitoes are, there's no expectations for them other than it's just a mosquito. Annoying ass mosquito, but it's just a mosquito. And so I think of like, okay, if I can see that and see that this tree can just be a tree, why can't I see myself and just be like, this fool can just be a fool, this guy can just be a guy? There's so many expectations that translate into limits. An example of this was last weekend, where I had to plan how to get to the destination. It was like an hour and a half away. I had to get on the bus, book the tickets, make sure I have a way to come back, make sure I have the time to get there, and then to attend this event and be able to go hang out with this person. And then from there, the next day it's all laid out, it's all planned out. There's always a plan. And the best thing, one of the best things that happened this past weekend was completely unplanned, completely spontaneous. Of course, there was that little tiny bit of anxiety that was buzzing around like a little mosquito, now that I'm calling it that. That was like, you didn't plan for this, you don't have anything to like prepare for it, and all this and that. So the spontaneous thing was a camping trip. Usually it's like you have a list to take things, you have to make sure you have the food, and you have to make sure you have the shelter, and you have to make sure you have the warmth. I didn't bring any of that shit, but I said, you know what, I'll be taken care of. I'll just let it go. I'll just go with the flow, go with the wind, wherever it takes me. And it took me to such a beautiful campground. I got to swim, and I got to roast marshmallows and spend some time with friends, make new memories. And yeah, it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've had in a few months actually. And anytime that I'm invited to experience something like that. I'm incredibly grateful for the universe because I did have no plans for it, and it just was there and it happened. Thinking about where we went, it was a location that we've never been to either. So it's also like the expectations of where you allow yourself to be taken, where you allow yourself to explore. Sometimes it's gonna limit because of that comfortability factor or the safety factor of like, well, I've never been there, so I don't know what's gonna happen. And it's like, guess what? For every single bad thing that could go wrong, for every single terrible assumption, there is an equal and opposite reaction, okay? So it's like you think of 10 of the worst things that can happen and balance it out with 10 of the best things that can happen. One of the mantras I tell myself a lot is, why project the worst when you know dang well you can manifest the best shit ever? So it's like, I can't keep limiting myself and I can't keep holding myself back because of that. One of the memories I have as a kid was, okay, that's gonna sound crazy. Context is, we had this river and people would go on a bridge, but it was like for fun, and it was like everybody would do it. We'd jump off the bridge into the river, and it wasn't like tall enough to like obviously hurt you or anything like that, but it was a significant drop. But it was like, instead of a boulder, it was happened to be a bridge. And that sounds crazy to say, but we were doing it for fun, and it was in Mexico, so it was like whatever. I was on there and I was just sitting there. I got sunburnt because I was there for like over half an hour, almost an hour, just contemplating. When I was in the water, seeing everybody jump off and join in the water, and they were like, oh, that was crazy, that was so fun, otra vez, otra. Obviously I was like, dude, that looks so fucking crazy, that looks so fun, I want to fit in and I want to do it. So then I go up there and I realize how far it is from the bottom, and I'm like, oh shit. But I also don't want to chicken out. And so I just stayed there. And the more that I stayed there, the more that I kept thinking about it. I kept seeing people jump in and go around and jump in again, go around, jump in again. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting there, observing, watching, hesitating. Hesitation has been, we'll get into it, but I was sitting there. At one point, I just had to say, you know what? What's worse, the embarrassment or the fear? Or the fear of embarrassment. But I managed to do it. I said, you know what? Full send. Jump in. Didn't land right. I hurt my butt doing it. But at the end of the day, I was also very proud that I had the ability to finally say, you know what? Let's fucking go. Fast forward to this weekend, there was an instance where there was another kind of situation, but this time it was a boulder, and a lot of other people were doing it. We had seen people jump from even higher, and this time I went in, and one, I was trying to impress. I was trying to impress some people. But two, ever since I had gone to Puerto Vallarta and gone and went snorkeling, I used to have this huge fear of open bodies of water, of not being able to see the ground, or if I saw that there was like plants and everything, I'd imagine the worst creature hiding behind there just waiting to come out at me. And so it was like, I had this built fear of this, like, not knowing what lies beneath or what happens. You know, I think if you feel what I'm feeling, I know you know where I'm going with this. But where I'm trying to take this is, when I went this time around, I allowed myself to, one, feel, you know what, yes, that's exactly it. I'm feeling scared that I'm up here. And that's fine and that's valid, because my body and my mind is like, you sure about that? And it's the right thing to do. It's a human reaction. So it was validating the emotion. You know what? Yeah, I feel kind of scared. But at the same time, whatever happens after feeling scared, what has happened to me in my life after I get so caught up in my head and I just have to, at the end of the day, surrender, give up. And what lies beneath fear? Joy, curiosity, excitement. Sometimes it's the same physical sensation, and the only difference is what thoughts I'm feeding that feeling. Wow. So thinking about that, looking over and seeing and feeling that I'm still kind of scared of looking at this distance, this height. I know I'm gonna jump. I'm not gonna prevent myself from it because of that fear. And so I thought about it. And as I was looking down, it just felt like it was going higher and higher. And at that point, I said, if I stay here and contemplate even more, I'm just gonna be stuck like I was back when I couldn't jump off. It sounds so crazy to say, back when I couldn't jump off the bridge. But it wasn't like that, promise. And so anyways, so I look over, I look at the water, and I say, you know what, here we go. I jump off. And previously, I also hated roller coasters for this reason. I felt like when I had that free fall feeling that I couldn't breathe or talk or anything. And so I've learned to conquer that fear. I have conquered that fear of roller coasters thanks to Six Flags and their DC rides. And my little brother, most importantly, my little brother. I was able to conquer those fears because he was doing that shit with me. Shout out to you, Axel. But the point is that I was there and I held it in for like a split second. And then as soon as I released it and felt that, I was like, oh my God, this is actually a lot of a longer fall than I thought. I yelled and I broke the water. And then I was in the water. So in the split second where I genuinely felt like, oh shit, I did something that I'm like, oh, I'm regretting. Boom. It was done. It was over. And I did it. And I felt great. Would I do it again? Fuck yes. But that's the point. Is every time that I look over into the distant future of the unknown and I don't know what's gonna happen and I don't know what to plan for and I don't know what to expect, now I know that I can expect something good too. I do. And so can you. Wherever you are in your life, and if it's feeling like you're on this edge of a boulder looking down into a water, there's no going back, you don't even know how you got there, just know that faith is gonna catch you. I had this really beautiful vision when I was doing some stretching, and I was really going through it emotionally, and I felt like, you know, all of the words, disappointment, ridiculous, dumb, all of those things. And as I was hearing those words, I just kept breathing and breathing and breathing, and I sat down in my breath, and I felt this, like, these hands holding me during that time in that moment. And that was one of those first times, second times actually. I have another memory for another time, but that was one of those moments where I genuinely felt how do I say this? I was gonna say how tangible faith can be, but either way, that was the first time I felt this kind of like genuine being held by faith, God, the universe. And it was at a time when all I could repeat internally were negative things. But I knew that the practice was helping, the breathing and the stretching. And I think that's what was inviting that feeling of support when I'm feeling and thinking, actually no, so when I'm thinking of all of these terrible things, what is it that I can do physically to remind myself that I can move through this, breathe through this, and know that something good can happen after the fact. I say this because wherever you are in your journey, whether it's a healing journey or whatever you want to call it, I kept feeling like I was just in the same place, and you know, I'd see things change in my life, see so much growth happen, over there and over there, and I could feel myself change too, but I also felt like at every interval the trauma is the same, the experiences still happened, and it felt like because that was true, that me being able to escape is the word that's coming up, but actually that's a really good word. But me being able to free myself from all of the things that were enabling the hurt within myself, it made me feel like I just couldn't. It felt like I couldn't heal. It felt like I couldn't even. I don't even know what to say to that. Like, I don't know how to expand that. It felt like I was the stagnant one. And, people were experiencing new pains and new experiences, but I just kept going back to my old ones. And it's so interesting because I see how much impact those experiences have had on me. And I've also gotten to experience how much I myself have clung on to those experiences to perpetuate the stories that I was grown and groomed to believe. And part of healing and that I've learned, especially through the help of my friends and specifically Chima, if you're watching this, it's that you have built so much of your life now, and you've exposed yourself to so many new tools that it's overwhelming to be like, I have access now to all of these really helpful things that can help me, but I also feel justified in prolonging the healing because I still identify with so much of that hurt. And because that's where that line is, it's like thinking of the compatibility or magnetism. And if you have all of these experiences that define an identity, and you're presented with something new, and you go into that world with that, you're like, no, that's not confirming everything that I have here. That's not anything that I believe to be true because of all the things I already believe. So it repels everything else. And that's what I've been noticing in my life. So wherever you are in this moment, know that new things are good, can be good, and also can take up that space of the old things that we were using to continue a narrative and to continue confirming and justifying behaviors, attitudes, and emotions. One revelation that I've had, especially with certain tools and coping strategies, has been that there are physical habits, but there are also mental habits. And sometimes the mental habits are the things that perpetuate the physical. And I would confuse the physical habit for being the bad thing, but really it was my perception and what I was telling myself what this was, and whose beliefs I was also allowing myself to confirm a lot of those things. And especially being first generation and being an older brother, the fucking pressure that I've been placing on myself, the fucking expectations that I've had placed on me, it all contributed to just feeling burnt out, being taken advantage of, and not being perfect enough or a great example even. A lot of these things that I've been processing and healing have been things that have been hidden for so long, that have had, its own way of engaging in my world, that sometimes it feels like if that's something that changes, my whole world changes. And now it's kind of funny to think about that, but there's valid fear behind that. But sometimes the fear comes because we think change will always lead to something worse, when change is exactly how this grew behind me, this tree is growing above me. There's so much goodness out there that we can also remind ourselves that we are compatible for something good. Yeah, we'll leave it there. You're compatible for good things. You can attract good things because you are a good thing. Same way this tree behind me was planted and grew, that in and of itself is a miracle. You just being, that in and of itself is a miracle. To think that in this life, in this world, in this universe, specifically in this galaxy, so much bad does happen, and it doesn't take away from all of the good that also does happen. And in my childhood, and my cousin as well, we both lived through environments that were genuinely trying to take us out. And I think of that shit today, and I'm like, girl, if they didn't succeed taking us out when we were kids, what makes you think? So you've made it, and you've made it really far in life. Part of this checkpoint is also recognizing how much you did to give yourself a life worth living, and how much you are in control to be able to receive all of that really good stuff in that life that you are creating. So keep creating. You have so much more control and power than you think.